Good morning. This is 1 in 36, a presentation from Anderson Center for Autism, celebrating their centennial in 2024. 1 in 36 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And today I'm talking with my colleague, Ashlie Symer, who is the clinic coordinator up in the Capital Region in Latham, New York, which is one of Anderson's latest endeavors. Ashlie, good morning. Thanks for being on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I always love interviewing Anderson colleagues because it reminds me just how much we're doing and how much we've grown over the years. So I've been at Anderson for 18 years, and we certainly had nothing to do with Latham at the time, other than serving the occasional student from that area on our main campus in Staatsburg. But now we've got a whole clinic up there and a beautiful location. And so, Ashlie, I'm going to start by asking you to tell us, how long have you been with Anderson, and what brought you to us?
Yeah, of course. So I started with Anderson in January of 2023. I started as we were really building the framework for Anderson Early Learning Academy, the preschool, as well as Anderson Center Clinics. So we have really established this groundwork since January when we started our team here at the Latham location. Prior to that, I was a behavior analyst and licensed behavior analyst at a similar program to what Anderson offers, with learners from preschool age up to early elementary school. So I really got a lot of great experience with this age group of learners who has progressively increased. So as I grew up there, I have grown in what I can serve back to the autistic community. From a role as a teaching assistant through behavior technician as I got my grad degree done. And then here I am, I'm licensed and board certified, serving the autistic community like I had dreamed of when I started grad school.
That's great. We're happy to have you. So you've been really dedicated to the field of autism and autism services and applied behavior analysis since school. Why, I guess, is my main question. What is it about this specific population that excited you when you were beginning your graduate school program?
So I started off in adult residential, right fresh out of undergrad with my bachelor's degree. I wanted to contribute. I grew up with my family working in the related field, in day programs and residential settings across state programs and not-for-profit. And I really got to see the ins and outs of like what adults do in their homes and in their communities. So I really wanted to focus on like, how can I help the future in getting their adult life to be driven by themselves? I wanted them to be able to live with dignity and comfort and really drive their lives. So to me, that's starting at an early age and helping these young learners get on their feet, to have that groundwork of skills, to be able to advocate for themselves, to be able to help themselves in the kitchen, to be able to communicate and have social relationships as you and I. It's important for that value that they have in their lives. So for the autistic community, I really wanted learners to be able to experience life outside of their school setting and their home setting across all of the things that other people enjoy.
I think that's a beautiful answer, and actually really fits so beautifully into Anderson's mission, which is to optimize the quality of life for individuals with autism. Interesting to me that you sort of started out with this model and this experience of adults with autism. I would think firsthand seeing the things that sometimes we don't think about right away, especially when we're professionals in the field, right? We're thinking about safety and well-being, which are all important, but we're not always immediately thinking about the soft skills, the independent, cooking, choosing a recipe that one might enjoy, being able to go to the grocery store, being able to interact with somebody when, you may have a very minor, but, medical need that where you're not in an emergency situation, but you might need to ask for help. Things that from when you're watching adults and supporting adults, you see both the highs and the lows, right? You see what can happen when that person doesn't have the skill, and also what can happen when that person has mastered that skill. And now you're working with younger folks with that. I'm sure that's still in your mind about this is the goal. This is where we need to get to, because this person is going to age. This person is going to become an adult someday.
Right. And here at Anderson, we certainly understand that services are lifelong services. They don't end when a learner graduates school. They need skills to get them through their lives. So really starting there is where we want to go with what we're doing here at the clinic.
That's great. So tell us about the clinic. Maybe you can always throw out the address if you want to. I know it's in Latham, New York. It's in a beautiful building that's been recently completely renovated, and it's really a lovely, welcoming space. And it's in Century Hill. Is that where it is?
Yep.
Okay.
We are located at 7 Century Hill Drive in Latham, New York. We have a sister program. Our preschool is under the same roof, but we operate separately. We're really looking to be an autism hub to the autistic community. We want to be the one-stop shop. In our experience and what we're seeing, families are spread all over the place to get providers for early diagnostics, late diagnostics. If there's questions about, does my child have autism? They need extra supports. Can we get them evaluated? And then just ongoing things. So services from occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists. So here in the clinic, we operate off of an ABA-based model, and then we also offer clinical psychologist diagnostic evaluations. So taking two routes, the ABA service delivery, we work with insurances and flexible payment options for families to be able to receive our services. And we're really looking at a comprehensive model for ABA services. We're looking at behavior reduction for interfering behaviors that may be dangerous. And we're looking for skill acquisition. What can we teach these learners who need these skills to improve their quality of lives? So toileting, independent feeding, communication, social and play skills, depending on their age, preschool or school readiness. So that way they can move on to their next environment in a least restrictive way. And then our diagnostics, we're looking at getting learners who have indicators for an autism diagnosis. So our clinical psychologist does her panel of evaluations and provides the output of that. So our families who are on these long wait lists at other providers' offices or doctors' offices, we're getting them in pretty quickly to turn around. So that way it doesn't hold them up on getting any future services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's been a big shift over the past probably decade or two of families recognizing, and I think it's important to note that, typically a family and a parent is going to be the first person who notices that something maybe seems, a little off, a little different. Maybe you want to follow up and ask. It's still a scary process, I am sure, for a family who's sort of deciding whether or not to ask the question or to go to the referral. So, and then once that started to happen, though, and more families were asking questions earlier, and pediatricians are getting more training in medical school to do diagnostics and to make those referrals earlier. It is a gateway if your child ends up on the autism spectrum to the services coming to you at an earlier time. But what it's also done, I think, is created these wait lists that, as you mentioned, are extraordinarily long in many cases, and thereby are delaying access to certain services. So we want to reinforce that we're looking at ourselves, like you said, as a hub in the area. We did do some work ahead of time, a good amount of work to identify where the gaps were and to make sure that our services up in Latham were specifically designed to fill a need. So there are multiple providers where you can get a diagnosis, but we are now offering that service as well. And you said we're able to bring people in a pretty quick turnaround time?
Yes. So I don't have an exact number on our wait list, but as soon as people are in, we're figuring out their insurance, like all that background information and how we could work with them for what works for their family. And they're getting in fairly quickly. I know that right now there's only a couple scheduled out through the end of the year. So there are openings right now for diagnostic evaluations.
Great.
We can see you here at our Latham location, or if you're closer to Statsburg, our clinical psychologist also travels there for diagnostic evaluations.
Great. And for people who may not know where Statsburg is, that is basically right just north of Poughkeepsie, New York. So it's in the Hudson Valley. That's great to know. And I know that's a relatively new thing that she's been coming down to our main campus, which is helpful, I think, for a lot of families. Ashlie, we only have about 2 minutes left in our first half of the show. And second half, I wanted to kind of get into what the sessions look like a little bit, how long they are, timing, that kind of thing. But let's just use the last couple of minutes here. One thing that I know sometimes overwhelms families when they're starting to access services for their child is paperwork, phone calls. How do I get there? How do I get my insurance company to understand what it is that Anderson Center Clinic needs? Do you have people, or are you the person, or are there other people that you work with who are available to help families? Maybe not, do the paperwork, because a lot of that I know has to be done by the family, but to help them through that process and to make it a little easier, because it's a big lift for a lot of families.
Yes, it's daunting. So we typically gather all of the information we need for intake. So it's pretty much demographic information on who you are, what you're looking for. And then we provide an intake packet through an online portal. So that can be completed independently, or we also give you the option to come on in. We'll sit with you one-on-one, side by side, to walk you through everything. So if questions are tricky or if it's just too lengthy, we can have a conversation, like an organic intake packet versus the paperwork. So we're really trying to start that relationship building right off the bat with our families. In that it's an option. You can go home and do your paperwork, or you can come in and we'll do it in a conversation-based model. So that way we can get a feel for who each other is. And that really starts our relationship for ongoing services.
I love that. And I'm so proud to work at Anderson, because we go out of our way to do those types of things, to really meet families where you're at, and to understand that some people, the only time they have is at 2 a.m. when they're up and they finally have an hour to of quiet and sort of to do that kind of work. And that's where the portal comes on into play. Maybe not always at 2 a.m, but sort of at your convenience. But also that personal touch where you're able to come in and do the one-on-one, because sometimes it really is easier to just have a conversation and all of a sudden the information just comes out more naturally. And then you've got the application, halfway completed or something. So I love that we're offering that. Just want to reinforce that Ashlie Symer is our clinic coordinator. And Ashlie, before we go to break, can you give out some way to reach you, whether it's an email or a phone number or a website? Where should people go to start the process?
Yeah, absolutely. If by phone is the best way to reach us, we can be contacted at 518-641-1119, option 3. That'll bring you to our office manager. And then if email is easier, so you can shoot it out at any time of day, we can be contacted at andersonclinic@andersoncares.org. And that will come to myself and our office manager. So you'll be in touch with somebody either way.
Great. Ashlie Symer, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get into what the clinic sessions look like, who's running them, what the needs are that we're trying to help address, and give families a real sense of what we're offering. This is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and we'll be right back.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here.
I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy. You know what? We should make an emergency communication plan. That way we're ready this year. At my dorm, we have emergency kits for earthquakes and wildfires, but I'm sure there's something more local I can send you with a link.
Okay, smart.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Somewhere, there's a river rushing through the woods while someone rushes through their day. There's a mountain looking up at the sky while someone looks down at their phone. A trail waiting to be walked while someone waits for a latte. This world is full of somewheres waiting for someone just like you. So go see yours at 154 national forests and 20 grasslands. And to learn more, visit nationalforest.org. The National Forest Foundation. See your somewhere.
And now, 1 in 36 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs program presented by the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I'm talking with my colleague, Ashlie Symer, who's the clinic coordinator up in our Latham site, our Latham, New York site. She runs the Anderson Center Clinic, which is a relatively new endeavor for Anderson, but we're doing well, and we're here to offer services to families and individuals in need. And Ashley's been really helpful so far. Thank you, Ashlie, for providing an overview of the program, some background on yourself, and some contact information as well. So we covered diagnostics, which is a huge first step for really any parent or caregiver who's raising a child, they think that they might be on the autism spectrum. So we do offer those services. In addition to diagnostics, though, Ashlie, why would a parent or even a physician maybe make a referral for a child to come to the clinic? What else are we doing up there?
Absolutely. So like you said, diagnostics is the first step. And that is because in New York State, we need a diagnosis of autism and a prescription for services to continue with what our clinic offers. So that's really our first step. After that, we really proceed with comprehensive ABA services. So applied behavior analytics services. We offer sessions 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And these are really unique and individualized for our learners. We are assessing them at intake to see what kind of skills they may need to build in order to promote their independence. And also to see if there are any interfering behaviors that really are preventing the learner from accessing all of their environments in which they live in and exist in. So we do our intake process and then we move forward. So our sessions are intensive in that they have to be medically necessary. So we are an intensive model. We expect our families and learners to participate in the 5-day-a-week calendar work week like we do. And then the length varies. We're starting minimally at 2 hours, but if it's appropriate for the learner and they're not in any other kind of daytime placement, we're increasing that to fit their level of need. Ultimately, our goal is to get our learners for their next step. They're not 3 or 4 forever. They're going on to preschool or school age programs. Or if they're an early elementary student, they're moving on to like sports or social groups. So we're really trying to get them ready for that. A typical session, if we're looking at a 2-hour model for a medically necessary model, 2 hours, we typically have a mealtime or a snack time with them to work on independent feeding. Can they sit at the table? We see a lot of learners who will take a bite and walk away and not really engage in that family style meal. And that's pretty valuable to all the families we've worked with so far. So getting family input, what do you want for your kiddo and your young learner? So we try to incorporate a mealtime or a snack time as long as it's appropriate for the learner and it's a time of day to consume some food. Full bellies definitely make you work harder because you're ready to eat. So some kind of snack. We're always working on communication, and we really have learners across the board who communicate differently. We have some early learners who are working with picture exchange communication systems. So that's a PECS book with icons. We have some vocal verbal learners. We have learners with emerging language that they're working on approximations to get their needs and wants met, paired with some visual icons. And then we have some learners who utilize AAC devices, so augmentative communication devices, like an iPad that has an app on it where you touch it and it gives you a voice output to get their needs and wants met. So we've got food, we have some language, play and leisure skills. This isn't always just sitting down playing with blocks. There's a lot of things that we learn while we play. It's our foundation of learning. So it's problem solving, it's visual perceptual skills, it's communication to the person you're playing with, it's tolerating somebody playing in your area. It's really, what do I do with my downtime? How do I do this functionally? So if we're looking at an older learner, if they're not quite sure how to utilize an iPad correctly and they may be just scrolling through a YouTube video, how can we teach that appropriately? Find an app and then you can look through perhaps pictures or National Geographic things or playing games.
The thing that comes through to me when you're talking, Ashlie, is that everything comes down back to sort of engaging with.
Yes.
As opposed to just walking through your day and kind of, grabbing a snack and not thinking about it, which I have to admit I am guilty of many times throughout the day. But really that like the sort of, there's an engagement in every single thing that we do that's available, whether you're sitting down at the table, even whether you're by yourself with peers or at a family gathering or just a regular family meal. Whether there's, like you said before, you learn so much as you play, there's interaction, there's conscious choice. I want to build this as opposed to I'm just going to grab random blocks and build something. So I think, I just wanted to reinforce that it sounds to me what you're describing is an incredible way of teaching engagement throughout the individual young learner's day, no matter what the age range is or what they're getting ready to do next, or even the way they're communicating at this point. There's always an opportunity for further engagement.
Yes. And everything that we do, we get our family's input on it. So that way it is valuable to the family and what the dynamics are. So yeah, it's motivating to see each learner functioning in our clinic, but so differently, but together. It's really unique. It's a nice, intensive one-on-one model that our kiddos and young learners are working with behavior technicians, and they're supervised by a behavior analyst. So we really have a small, tight team, but we're intensive in what we provide, which is why we're seeing such great progress across the board for our learners.
I think it's great. And also, I just want to reinforce, Anderson turned 100 years old this year. And so while the clinic itself is not been around for 100 years, you got the experience and knowledge and expertise of so many professionals sort of behind the team and within the team that this is what we do. And I want to reinforce that because like I said, when we were getting ready to open in Latham, we did a lot of pre-work to figure out and to hear from families and other stakeholders about whether the need was up there. And there was an unmet need. And that's why we decided to come to that particular area and open our doors both for the preschool and the Early Learning Academy and the clinic. And it's wonderful hearing you describe it. I love it. I want to also touch briefly on payment. I know that a big thing that we do is work with insurance companies, and so again, families can utilize their own insurance for the clinic services with a diagnosis and all the other things that come along with that. But you mentioned earlier that there are some flexible payment options. We're not going to get into detail on that, but I want anybody listening to be aware that if you are interested and have a need, for your loved one, for your little one, to get services from the Anderson Center Clinic, we want you to get in touch with us and ask questions. We will give you straight answers about what's available and what we might be able to do with you in your circumstance. And we will certainly not waste your time. So please get in touch with us. And Ashlie, do you want to give out the contact information again?
Yes, we can be reached by phone at 518-641-1119. Option 3 will get you over to the clinic. And then by email at andersonclinic@andersoncares.org.
That's great. Thank you. And we have a couple minutes left. I just, how many students, how many young learners are in the getting clinic services now? Do you have an approximate number?
Currently, we have 13 learners right now who are filling up our day. We do have daytime openings from about 8 o'clock to 1 p.m. So 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. for our daytime learners. Our after school is typically very busy, so that one's full right now, but we have a good full day, and we're really excited to bring in more learners who need this medically necessary service to get them along.
Yeah, I think it's always tricky. I think a lot of families are working during the day, and that 8 to 1 time slot might feel hard. But honestly, I'll just put my own thoughts out there that if your child would benefit from this medically necessary service, then maybe, especially in this day and age, some people do. Not everybody, I know that, but some people do have the opportunity to be flexible with their work hours. Some people have early risers in their homes. I know I did for years. One of my own children was always a late riser, but the other one was always up at the crack of dawn. So, don't downplay that 8 to 1 time slot, especially if the service provision is available now. But either way, whether you're free then or want to get on the waiting list for a slot in the afternoon, I would encourage you, if you have the need, to contact Ashlie and her team. Ashlie, any parting words for people listening to learn more about the clinic?
Definitely check us out on socials. You can find us through the Anderson website. And then again, if you have specific questions about intake or inquiries, or is your program a fit for my kiddo, contact us. We'll help you. We'll get you in the right direction. Even if it's not us for whatever reason, we'll get you the resources you need. Again, we really want to be this autism hub for the Greater Capital Region. So we're here to support you in what you need.
Fabulous. Couldn't have said it better myself. Ashlie Symer, Clinic Coordinator for Anderson Center Clinic and Anderson Center for Autism. Thank you so very much for being on the show and sharing all of your expertise. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
This is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 36, a weekly presentation from Anderson Center for Autism, celebrating their centennial in 2024. Join them for another edition of the show next weekend.